creator, to your higher power, where you get your strength from. And for me, I am a Christian, and I'm going to come to you from my Christian faith as I speak. But please understand, I stand in solidarity and respect your higher power and how you worship and how you gain your strength. And with that said, I'd like to invite Reverend Rodney. And apparently I have an accent on your name, and you're going to have to correct me in my tongue so that I can say it correctly.
Beyond. Beyond top of the D.
Beyond thee.
I invite you, if you feel led, to join me in prayer, and I hope that some of these words speak to where you are. Heavenly Father, we come to you this day, and we are thankful for every single voice. Say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for every voice. You hear every voice. Our democracy works best. Our democracy. You say, our democracy? Hi, guys. Our democracy works best. Our democracy.
You got it, Gus.
You got it. Our
Yeah,
democracy
Gus.
works best when we hear every voice.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay, Gus! Yay, Gus!
I have to tell you, I find that extremely exciting. I'm all about who's going to replace us on the front lines when it's time for us to step back. Who's going to hold the line? And I know that we're looking for it for Joe Manchin to hold the line. He was the one that had freedom to vote drafted. He took from both sides and created something that they could agree on. And we're looking forward to him holding the line and bringing us all across that finish line so that more people can have the right to vote, that it's expanded. The things that we found out during the pandemic, how to successfully get people to the polls. And if we continue what we've been doing, having more people involved in this great democracy. We're here at night because we want to exhibit the fact that we don't want the light turned out on democracy.
That's right.
We want the sun to continue to rise. It is extremely important that everyone has the right to participate in the vote, in the say of who runs this country and how they guide their lives. That vote is just like money in the bank. We all have that opportunity to come together and spend it and make a difference. Now I have here, thank you. I want to definitely also, as we've given honor to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and the higher power, I also want to acknowledge, as I've been invited to be a part of the Indigenous Peoples Caucus, I also want to acknowledge the land that we stand on and those who have fought this fight on this land longer than we have, and how they continue to fight and stand, and they live their lives as examples. I would even say just simply existing as Indigenous people. Again, I want to give respect to the land that we are standing on. Thank you. So I want to also acknowledge, I have a long list here of participants and supporters. And so we have involved in this is West Virginians for Democracy, AFL-CIO, Americans Friends Service Committee, and I saw instantly seeing light. I haven't seen her in so long. There you are. Who's done so miraculous and amazing things. I hope you all, if you don't know her, get a chance to talk with her. You're going to hear from Rick in a minute, but they're just a fabulous organization. The West Virginia Family of Convicted People. And they're going to be speaking here today. Citizens for Clean Elections. You don't know how important that is. And thank you for monitoring, watching out, and making sure at least what we have in place is upheld as we look to expand and include more people. And also I'd like to include the West Virginia Citizens Action Group. We all know about them, Gary, and of course Sally too, and some others that are here. Our Future West Virginia, Rise Up West Virginia. I'm a part of the National Organization for Women, as well as the NAACP. We all stand in solidarity with freedom to vote. It's extremely important. I believe that's why each and every one of you have come out today, is because you find that it's important. And we're going to hear from a couple of people. And so if you will, may I have Josh Sword, President of West Virginia AFL-CIO.
Thank you. I am Joshua Sword, President of the West Virginia AFL-CIO. We are honored to be here in support of the Freedom to Vote Act. So, in my opinion, voting is the most important component of our democracy. Yet attacks on the process of voting has taken its toll. And the legitimacy of our elections has been called into question over and over and over again recently. Now, I have to tell you, I find it disheartening that we have to be here in support of the Freedom to Vote Act to reinstitute integrity into our elections process. But that's where we are. So here we stand. And I proudly stand in support of the Freedom to Vote Act. Among a whole list of things that it does, here are just a few. And the reason that I believe it's important for Congress to act and act quickly. It creates standards throughout the country for early voting. It creates standards for mail-in voting. It creates standards for voter identification. It prohibits tactics used to suppress the vote. Think about that. Think about Congress needing to pass legislation to prohibit the suppression of voting. It bans gerrymandering. We just witnessed that not that long ago right here where we stand. Creates standards for voter registration. Prohibits unlawful voter purges. We're seeing that happen here in West Virginia and all across the country. Creates standards on how to handle and address dark money. Many would argue that's part of the reason that the integrity of our elections process is in question. Requires post-election audits so we have more confidence in what happened. And many other things. Those are just a few. So why would anyone be opposed to the Freedom to Vote Act? Because there are plenty of bad actors out there that don't want fair elections. They want to tip the scales in their favor by making it harder for people. By making it harder for people to vote and participate in the biggest core of our democratic process. It's really that simple. And it's sad and it's shameful. So I proudly stand up on behalf of the West Virginia AFL-CIO and all of our affiliates and ask Congress to do the right thing and pass the Freedom to Vote Act now so that we have fair elections and we're all playing on the same level playing field in the 2022 election and beyond. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Don't you love labor? They say it all, they know it all, they do it all, and I'm just thrilled to have labor here. But I'm also really happy for this new organization. the West Virginia families of convicted people. I'm asking a representative. There's a number of them here supporting. So if you will, come on up and introduce yourself. I'm just thrilled for this organization.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming out. My name is Deborah Yudevich, and I am a community organizer for the West Virginia family of convicted people. West Virginia has so many resources. When it comes to voting, there are so many untapped resources that it's not even funny. One of the largest ones are the justice impacted people. So many people in this state don't even realize that you can vote if you have something on your criminal record. We are trying to educate people and inspire people to get them out, to motivate people. We want to lift up their voices and have them be a part of the system that they were kept out of for so long. These are people that over the years have been marginalized, have been ostracized, and been criminalized. And what we're trying to do now is tell them, you don't have to let these things happen to you. You can get up, you can stand up and speak up and be a part of the process, not just a victim of it. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's what freedom to vote is all about. We have all of these untapped, yes, resources is a very good way of putting it. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of individuals that just simply believe they don't have the right. And what we're doing right here is make sure that they do have that right. Even though they don't know, all we have to do is get the message to them. And so the freedom to vote will keep those things in place, that it will keep those elements as was already described. But you know what else would work? You know what else will help? How about we give a call to our representatives? If everyone will pull out your phone, and we have the numbers right here, and tell Joe and Capito that we want to keep the freedom to vote, or hey, we're relying on you, Joe, for the freedom to vote. So again, let's take a couple minutes. Everyone pull out their phone, dial the numbers. Let's take action. That's why we're here tonight. And I need to dial myself. I don't have it memorized.
202.
Go ahead.
202. 224.
224.
3954.
3954. All right. Well, I'm going to keep calling. I'm going to keep emailing. And while we're doing that, you know who's another really great individual? Someone that I've worked with a little bit. Someone that I've missed for a long time. He stepped away. And so as Rick Wilson comes, I want you all to just say, freedom to vote! Freedom to vote! And so, Rick Wilson.
All right, Rick.
Come on, Rick.
Woo!
Thanks very much. The thing I like about this coalition is there are people who are organizing and phone banking and doing all the kind of things you do to fight for what we need, the freedom to vote. There are also people here who are doing all that, but they're from the faith community. They're bearing witness to their traditions. They're praying and fasting, and I kind of think it might take a lot of human effort and maybe a little help from above to get where we need to go.
Amen.
And I want to talk about where I think the state of our country is right now. The good news is I think it reminds me of one of the greatest poems ever written. The bad news is that poem is Dante's Inferno. And I'm going to talk about the first sentence from that poem. It goes, tell me if this doesn't sound like our country right now. Think of what we've been through in the last several years. The first line, in the middle of our life's journey, I awoke to find myself in a dark wood, having lost the true path. Does that sound about like where we are right now?
Amen.
Yes, it
We've
does.
lost our way, we're in danger of losing our democracy.
Yep.
Dante's problem is not just the dark wood, though. There are three wild beasts there that want to tear him to pieces, and they want to tear our country to pieces. In the poem, Canto 1 of Inferno, there's a wolf, a lion, and a leopard. The wolf symbolizes the forces of greed. Sound about right?
Yeah.
The lion, the forces of violence, and the leopard, the forces of fraud and deceit. Any one of those could sink a democracy, but we're facing all three. Talk about greed. growing inequality over the years, attacks on labor unions, dark money to the point where ordinary citizens cannot afford to run for major office unless they have major financial backing and do what the people who have it tells them to do. That's one force. The other, the line of violence. Let's think about January 6th. Let's think about all the hate groups that are meeting and talking in person and online around the country. Think of the mass shootings. Think of the various hate crimes that have gone on around the country. That's enough to tank a democracy too. And then let's go to the leopard of deception. Think of the disinformation, the propaganda, the drumbeat, the big lies that are being told, undermining our faith in democracy, our trust in each other. That's our situation right now. That's right out of Dante. But I don't want to end on a downer. Dante eventually made it out of hell, made it up the mountains of purgatory, and had a vision, a divine vision. But he had help, and I think the help he had is what we need. He had two spirits to guide him. One was the spirit of Virgil, the ancient Roman poet. Virgil symbolized human wisdom and effort in doing our best job. If that can only get us so far, toward the end of his journey, he was also guided by Beatrice, who symbolizes divine grace and help from above. And maybe with a combination of those two, we'll do what we need to do to push freedom to vote over the line and ensure the protection of our democracy. Thank you.
Man, well read, well bred, good looking. I just don't know what else to say. But the one thing, I have some more people here. Kathy is supposed to be next. But before Kathy comes, something that we've missed before, something that she continues to leave herself out. She continues to put herself forward, organizing and bringing us together. You know, this is a week of action that she continues to make sure we're involved, that West Virginia voices are heard. And so she doesn't know, but she told me I could change the agenda to run a show. Sally, please come and just, if nothing more than hi. We have to give a moment to Sally Roberts. She traveled to DC and back, and she just continues to make sure we're involved.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that everybody is here tonight. This couldn't be a more important and really critical moment in our nation's history. And I do go out everywhere I can, in every venue, speak out and act in every way I can, trying to help every group I can to move forward our democracy, to move forward the promise that our Constitution gave us, that our Declaration of Independence gave us. I hold it sacred, and going to Washington, D.C. was so moving to me, was so dearly heartrending to think that it had been attacked. And therefore, to me, the most critical moment right now, and the most critical underlying thing, is the Freedom to Vote Act, to ensure that our democracy continues, because state after state is seeing an attack on voting rights. 40-some states in our country now have introduced hundreds of anti-voting right bills. Bills that restrict people's ability to vote early. Bills that restrict the ability to help people. Bills that limit the amount of polling places and increase long lines and limit the ability to have mail-in ballots. This is a crisis for democracy. We don't have a government of the people, by the people, or for the people if we aren't hearing the people. Right, and if our votes are not counted. Yeah. So democracy can't wait, and it is urgent that Senator Manchin please get his bill that he worked on so hard, this bipartisan bill, the Freedom to Vote Act, get this one over the line. That's right. He did it in college, in football days. We're counting on him to do that. And we also want Senator Capito to pass this bipartisan bill and get democracy on safe footing again so that everyone's vote counts. Thanks. And now it's Kathy Ferguson, and I'm delighted to hand it over. I wasn't prepared today.
I feel like she could just drop the mic and we'll continue on. And I'll look at my little scrabble notes here. But thank you all for having me today. You know, many hundreds of years ago, a group of colonizers came together for the purpose of organizing in terms of representation for the country that they were attempting to live in. They had been under rule by kings across the seas, and they wanted to ensure that they had representation that really reflected their particular needs, and so they rebelled. That was in the 1700s. This was something that was reserved in terms of voting for wealthy white men, and that was just how it was. Fast forward about 120 years after that date, voting rights were expanded to include lower wealth white men. So we were able to move the needle, again, through organizing, through protesting, through making our voices heard. It would be some time before there was another movement, and this one would eventually include black men in 1869 with the 15th Amendment, which would allow them the right to vote. We won't get into the politics of things that happened to maybe keep them from voting or to be successful in that movement, but nonetheless it was on the books. Flash forward to 1920, and women of all races, creeds, colors, were able to vote and join this movement, again, through protests, through making our appeals known. And so I look at this crowd here, and I see a blend of all these different faces, all these different folks, where we have actually been able to come together, and we're standing together now, and we're asking Joe Manchin that our voices be heard, that our voices be demonstrated through and reflected through our votes, and let them be counted. Clearly, the history of voting has been significant in this country. It's been it's part of the historical landscape of America. It signals not only the importance of voting, but that voting is really an intrinsic right. It's no longer privilege. It's not just for the few, it's for the many. So much so, it has become the hallmark of Americana. The right to decide who represents us, what laws get passed, what ordinances come into being and existence. In fact, we fight in many countries around the world for other people's opportunities to vote so that their voices can be heard. So we want to make sure that we hold the line here and make sure that all folks in America are allowed the opportunity to vote without issue. We're asking Joe Manchin, through this Freedom to Vote Act, to stand up for the good people of West Virginia. One thing that we know about West Virginia, that we are commonly referred to as mountaineers. We also know that mountaineers are said to be always free. Is that true? No. Are mountaineers always free?
No.
It's debatable. It's debatable. We also know that there's been a long history of folks that represent us being tied to corporate monies and that type of thing. We want to get dark money out. And Joe Manchin, by advancing this legislation, you have an opportunity to write the record for the representation of West Virginia. You're making sure that dark money can get out of our politics here in West Virginia, and also too across the United States. We're here, we want to be heard, and we're asking you to please make sure you hold the line. You want to be bipartisan on every bill. We're asking you to bring Capito on board with this and make sure that our rights are protected, our voices are heard, our votes are counted.
You know, it's interesting when you go somewhere and they tell you you can't vote. They don't have a reason or an explanation, but you've come out, you're excited, you have your candidates, you've done your research, and you get there and you find out your name has been purged from the list, that you didn't receive any notice, or if you did, it went to some other address that they have on the books. And it's unfortunate in some of these occasions, the people working the polls don't know the law, don't know the parts that say, hey, I've been coming here for 20 years. You know me. You know where I always sign. You started turning in the book before I even walked up to the counter. This bill would end situations like that. It would end situations where veterans have showed up at the polls and found out by surprise that they needed not their driver's license, but their veteran's ID. And a veteran's ID that says they have been injured. Never heard that before. But sincerely having individuals turned away. Kathy Ferguson has testified at situations like that for the state of West Virginia. Joe Manchin has put together a bill that would end situations like that, that would be more inclusive, that everyone would have a right to vote, that there would be the freedom to vote. That's why we're here tonight. That's why we're here tonight. And so I don't know about you, but I'm kind of excited. I see y'all got jackets on and things of that nature. I don't have any of those things on because I'm just kind of pumped. Can I hear it? Are you pumped about this? Are you happy? I just understand the quietness of this thing. I'm excited to be living in these times. I mean, someone had a dream, and I think we're stepping closer to it. You know, it says, there's that song, how does it go? Can't nobody turn me around? Turn me around. Anybody know the words to that song? Come on up here. Come up here. Come on. Come on, DL. Come on up.
Come on, DL!
All right. Come on, DL. All right, all right. Well, I think we've come kind of to the end of our time. Let's see, we have, message call. Oh, they want us to do the message call. Who has a phone can dial the number. My phone isn't going out because I think I've stretched the broadband. Yes. Ms. Gallo, will you take your mic?
I will.
Come on, Ms. Gallo.
Umpteenth time.
Will you guide us what to say?
And so what we're going to do is leave him a group message.
However, your call is important, so please leave a detailed message.
And so we're going to say, relying on you, Joe. We're relying on you, Joe.
Good evening, Senator Manchin. My name is Alex. I'm here at the state capitol, West Virginia. We're probably just across the way from your house. But there's a handful of us here, and we just wanted to leave you a message. So, folks, what do we want to let Mr. Senator Manchin know tonight?
We're relying on you, Joe!
We're relying on you, Joe!
We're relying on you, Joe!
Senator Manchin, we're relying on you to pass the Freedom to Vote Act now. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I was supposed to have you rehearse before that, but I got so excited. So I think we're at the point. I think we have our little minion up there. She's disappeared. And so we're here to make sure that the lights are not turned off on our democracy. And so if you will. Let's meditate positive thoughts to keep this from happening. Someone said it for me already. Don't let democracy go out. Thanks everybody for coming out. Please share your pictures.
This little light of mine.
Are we lighting? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got this little light of mine.
Okay.
This little light of mine.
Here you go, Alice Gallup. Our soloist, here we go, activist extraordinaire. Come on. Alice.
Little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Shine on voting rights for all. I'm gonna let it shine. Shine on voting rights for all. I'm gonna let it shine. Relying on Joe Manchin, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Hey everybody, if you could help pick up the lights and help put